In Las Vegas. This is Outta Line. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM, 1340 AM, flagship of the Vegas Golden Knights. We are here live every Sunday, same time, 8 to 9. And right now we are live at Kicker's Gaming and Sports Bar in downtown Las Vegas, one of the very few standalone establishments right now still around. And they're actually kind of brand new, but kind of brand old. Does that make sense, Spencer?
That makes sense, yeah.
Jennifer Metzger and Dylan Reese, a great job putting this place together. Again, it is right down the road from the Cashman Center and the famous Neon Boneyard, now that has the Hard Rock hotel and casino sign. You could see it from the 95. It's pretty amazing. But we're just down the road, 931 North Las Vegas Boulevard. Come on down and check us out. During the show, we're offering free orange juice, some donuts. They got mimosa specials and other things going on. We're pretty dead down here typically in the morning, but it really livens up as the days go on. This place is pretty amazing. 17 big screen TVs. They've also got 15 gaming machines. Still got the social distancing in place, up to 50% capacity, pretty soon going up to 100% capacity as things slowly get back to normal. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, also here joining me today is our former intern, social media director, Spencer the Wiz Ostrowski.
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
The only former intern and social media director in the country with his own theme music. Also joining us back in the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studios. Social distancing still, as we are still kicked out of the Fox Sports studios until further notice. Part of the reason Dylan and Jennifer let us come down here and do the show live at Kick. But Dino Damon, known around the Lotus Broadcasting Studios as Damon Cotton, future WWE star and our director extraordinaire, I should say producer extraordinaire for some time now, back from a 2-week hiatus. So we want to thank Doug Douglas for filling in the last couple of weeks, and happy to have Damon back with us today. And also, hey, your calls and questions are welcome. The show is live. The number to call is 702-876 1340. That'll get you on board, and give us a call, man. Ask some questions, and that's it, man.
Hi, this is Bubby, and it's time for What's on Tap.
Yeah, What's on Tap is brought to you by title sponsor Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time, and now offering $2,500 off of closing costs for any program that you get approved for in the state of Nevada. That's home financing program. Give them a call, 702-964-5720. That is Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. On tap, man, the Golden Knights, one win away from winning round one after they were down 1-0 to the Minnesota Wild, winning in a place they never win, and that is the Xcel Center in Minnesota. And they won 2 games in a row there, and they're looking poised to take this series. On the other side, the Colorado Avalanche could wrap up their series in sweep fashion today against the St. Louis Blues. We'll talk about that. Also on tap, well, record history could be made in South Carolina today at the PGA Championship. An old veteran has poked a nose in front, had a nose in front yesterday, still hanging in there. We'll talk about that guy and that situation here in a little while. And the NBA playoffs, man, as interesting as ever. I think we expected that. Really, I don't think there is a clear-cut NBA championship this year, or championship series or team. So Spencer and I will break that down for you a little bit. Also, the Las Vegas Aces played their second game in a row at home today against the Connecticut Sun after dropping the first game to Seattle. They've won 2 straight, so they've already started on a winning streak this year. And, of course, if you're looking for some live sports to check out, you've got the Aces down at the Mandalay Bay Event Center. You also up in Summerlin can be checking out the Las Vegas Aviators playing some good ball. And how about their parent club, the Oakland A's, one of the better teams in Major League Baseball to this point in the season. We'll talk about all that and more as the show rolls on. Again, this is Out of Line. We are here live at Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar, and that is What's on Tap. Once again, brought to you by title sponsor Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighbor at a time and offering $2,500 free in closing costs for any home financing program you get approved for right now when purchasing a home in the state of Nevada. 702-964-5720. That's What's on Tap. Time for Nightcap.
Hockey players, as you know, are warriors. They don't give up. They come to play every game.
It's time for Nightcap, a cupful of the Vegas Golden Knights. From highlights to interviews to special events, the puck starts here.
He goes now. Walk and shoots, scores! White Cloud keeps it from the Vegas zone, and it's Tuck with a burst of speed. Alex Tuck scores! Dumba pulled off the boards and lost it. Here's Mark Stone on a breakaway. Short-handed. Stone scores!
But he takes a chance. He realizes Marchessault's scoring is a lot more important than him.
Waugh is scoring. He's got two as he puts it into the empty net.
Caught me having my Red Bull. That's pretty good, right? You got me on that one. Good. You know, you heard Nicholas Waugh score the first two goals, or I should say the first goal and the last goal last night. And it's funny, when we had Mike Messina on a little bit ago, Spencer, if you remember, he talked about one of the guys that needed to get going for this team to be solid, to make a run, and one of the guys that played really last year in the postseason, and that was Nicholas Waugh. And, of course, he opens the scoring up in Game 4 last night, and he closes the scoring with an empty netter. Very fitting. Nicholas Waugh's playing really well, as so are many of the other Golden Knights.
Yeah, this is the thing that I've noticed in this playoff series, and it didn't start off very well, but I think anything can happen in Game 1, right? It's a little tense. Everybody's going for the puck. It's going to be low scoring. But here's the thing I think changed in this series, because they go down 2-0, like in the next game. But, okay, you have this team, right, where there's so many talented players. But I think what they got away from is everybody tried to eat, right? Oh, let's try to pass the ball around, or the puck around the ball. It's funny. The puck around to everybody. Let's see who can get some good shots. In the playoffs, you need your star players to deliver. And I think they finally realized, I think Mark Stone more than anybody realized that. Because here it is. When your star players start to dominate and take over games, well, the next game, you have to try to adjust for the star player. And that's where you can use all your depth. Don't use your depth in the beginning to try to just get, oh, he can get a goal. No. Mark Stone, Jonathan Marchessault, Pacioretty, like when he comes back, like those are the guys that you need to have first the puck, and then everybody else can eat afterwards versus trying to make everybody happy. It doesn't matter about making everyone happy in the playoffs. It's about winning a Stanley Cup. And I think they've finally kind of gotten that attitude, and they've been very good in the playoffs since then.
Spencer, that's the thing is, you know, Peter DeBoer, that's what he's known for, is a no-nonsense type of guy and putting things together, doesn't care about making people happy, wants to win. Exactly what you said. And that's what this team is doing as he changed his season-long alternation of the goaltenders in the postseason. He saw what Mark Fleury did in that very first game where they lost 1-0 in overtime and saw that Fleury was standing on his head. He went with him in Game 2. It got scary for a minute, but that team just went on a run. The same ever since, and Marc-Andre Fleury has been the guy in net that's making this team go and making things run the way they are. He has been so impressive, it's not funny. We'll talk about Fleury in a second. I want to get to what you're saying about Mark Stone, because you were talking about a guy that is in his 9th NHL season. He's the first captain ever elected to the Golden Knights. It took 4 years for them to finally elect a captain. He is such a fitting captain for this team. I mean, you're talking about a guy that now he has 61 points for this team this year, 21 goals, 40 assists, led the team in points, 46 points in 58 career playoff games, Spencer. 21 goals, got his 21st last night, and a 20 geared for this type of a run. And the one thing Mark Stone is, I mean, it's getting overused, but he is such an emotional leader on this team. I mean, I don't know that anyone in the National Hockey League gets more excited when they score a goal than Mark Stone. And when your captain gets that excited, it lights up the entire team, and they all get it. So he has been absolutely tremendous. I think Alex tied for the best record in the NHL this year, the most points in the NHL this year. It's going to be awfully tough, but Minnesota still can't be overlooked. And Mark Stone, as you mentioned, he is the key to this game going. There are other players that are very important, but Mark Stone, without question, I won't say is the nucleus of this team, but is the guy surrounding the nucleus. The nucleus of this team, Marc-Andre Fleury, his 16th career playoff shutout last night, going on 37 years old and seems to be getting younger. It's his 83rd career playoff win. He's 83-64 overall in the playoffs. He'd only won one game, I should say 2 games in Excel Arena or Excel Center going into last. One of the 2 get switched. And in big games, in crunch time, I don't know that there's ever been any better than Marc-Andre Fleury. We can name a bunch of goalies, a bunch of players that maybe are as good and maybe do the same thing, but Marc-Andre Fleury, it'd be hard to say that there's ever been anyone better in big games and big moments than Marc-Andre Fleury. And the bottom line is, Spencer, I'll argue this point with anybody. I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that if Marc-Andre Fleury isn't in net, and I don't know how good Robin Leonard would have done, but this team is down 3-0, or maybe 3-1, if Marc-Andre Fleury is not the goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, one of those goals would call back to kind of change the entire series. I think they would have went up 3-0 at that point, and the comeback's just less likely to happen. It kind of, drains everything you got. But that I don't even think exists anymore in the game. Think back a little bit here. I mean, look at what sports is now. I mean, Kyrie has already come out like a couple weeks ago and said that basketball is not the most important thing in his life. And I'm not judging him for saying that. Like, there are more important things. But when you see a player who really does appreciate the sport for what it is, and I think that appreciation puts him above everybody else, because he is 2-0. A couple of goals you don't want to give up, but he was rock solid the rest of the game. He's not shaken. Those are the qualities. You're always going to give up goals in the playoffs. You're not going to shut out every single team. It's how you react to those goals and what you do going forward. And not only did he rebound in that game, but he has pushed himself far beyond that limit in the next game. And obviously the Knights don't want to spend too much time on Minnesota. Like, realistically, Minnesota is a very threatening team, but the fact that they're able to kind of take this much control of it, give themselves a great amount of confidence going into the next round is important, because they don't want to make a deep postseason run. They want to win the Stanley Cup. There's very different things. You look in the playoffs, there's a lot of teams that want to go as far as they can. That is not the case for the Golden Knights. They have their eyes set on one goal, and you got to take it one game at a time. But to have a leader like Fleury to be able to lead you to do that is obviously no other team in hockey basically has Marc-Andre Fleury right now, physically and mentally, what he does for the team.
No, Spencer, Marc-Andre Fleury is without question the difference maker. We'll be talking about him forever. I wonder now, and it's a question, we'll talk about this as well, what's going to go on in Game 5 now. You've got them up 3-1. They're coming home. If there's ever a game to let Leonard start and keep him fresh if they need him, it would be this game. At home, the pressure's off a little bit. You've got 3 games now, 2 games that you don't want to take. You want to win this series now, knowing that Colorado could definitely wrap up the series in St. Louis. I think we're all pulling for the Blues to win a game to push Colorado a little bit. You don't want them overly rested. They've really been handily beating the Blues. But this would be a game I would maybe think about starting Leonard, or do you just say, you know what, I'm riding Marc-Andre Fleury till the very, very end. It's going to be interesting to see what Pete DeBoer does there. I honestly don't know. For the first time, I'm a little bit perplexed. What would I do if I was Pete DeBoer right now? I'm leaning like I got to get Robin Leonard on the ice a little bit. If something does happen to Fleury, we don't want Robin to think we have no confidence in him. And there's nothing that Robin has done to remove the confidence from him that he's done that he doesn't deserve to be playing right now. He's had the best year of his career for the Vegas Golden Knights when he's been healthy. But yet, Marc-Andre Fleury, I mean, we saw it established in Game 1, even though it was a loss. It was literally a shutout. Marc-Andre Fleury should have 17 career shutouts because he shut them out through 3 periods. It took overtime for Minnesota to win Game 1, or that would have been another shutout in Marc-Andre Fleury's cap. I mean, unbelievable how good this guy is. I honestly don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Pete DeBoer is going to go with Robin Leonard in Game 5 to get him on the ice. But I won't be shocked if I'm wrong. And like I said, I might even be second-guessing myself because I just think maybe you just ride this wave with Fleury and let him play every game and just say, this is his net. Don't take him out of net for a minute. Don't shake his confidence. Say, Mark, we want you in there. But I'd also hate to see him lose Game 5 and give up a few bad goals or something, and then Marc-Andre Fleury's maybe confidence be shaken. It's really a tough subject, and I would love to hear what more experts think, and I'm going to find out and listen to that, obviously, before tomorrow night's game back at T-Mobile Arena. But Spencer, we talked a little bit about Max Pacioretty. It's an undisclosed lower body injury. If he's available Monday night, tomorrow night, do you play him in Game 5? And I'm going to say flat out, I don't play Max Pacioretty until Game 6 in Minnesota if he's ready. You don't need him for Game 5. In the simple spec, they've got 2 games to give right now. Keep this guy. Let him get healthy. Don't risk him getting injured if it's a lower body injury. He's been game to game, and obviously it's serious enough to keep him out of the series against a team that's been a pain in the Vegas Golden Knights' ass all season long in the Minnesota Wild. But now that you've got this little bit of a comfort zone, I let Max rest even if he's able to play tomorrow night. Some weird decisions if you're Pete DeBoer right now that you have to make. What do you think about both those decisions? Number one, Marc-Andre Fleury or Robin Leonard in Game 5? And if Pacioretty's ready, do you bring him back or do you keep him on the shelf?
Yeah, well, Game 5 in the goaltender situation tells us everything we need to know. If Robin Leonard is not starting, there is no better game to put him in. There's no pressure. I mean, you're up by a bunch. You're at home. So if he doesn't play, we will not see Robin Leonard in the playoffs, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, Fleury's been playing amazing, but so is he. I think you will see Robin in goal. I think it's the smart thing to do, especially, injuries can happen at any point in time. So you don't want to have a unfresh goalie or, give him a little bit of playoff experience, a little bit of confidence for himself. But I think he understands the situation too. I think Robin's like, okay, this guy's just on another level. I mean, what are you going to do? He has a whole career ahead of him. Less games, the more you get to play at the end of your career. It's not like he's still not collecting his game check. He's not losing money because he's not in goal. And I think, they have that fundamental understanding. And I also think they have a good relationship. So, yes, I think Robin Leonard is in goal. If he's not, we'll see him in next season, basically. Pacioretty, though, it's interesting. I don't think you want to start or end the game with him if you are going to play him. You don't want a guy coming back from injury to figure it out in the playoffs, at least not to dictate the pace of the game. Now, once you're in the middle of it, it's a little easier. So what I would say is this is what they should do, because Pacioretty is going to come back eventually. You play him maybe in the middle of a shift, like the third shift of that line, the first line, and then maybe in the second or the third period, you should say, maybe a little bit later. But you don't want to end the game with him because that's just a weird spot to be in. Now, has he forgotten how to play hockey completely? Probably not. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. Sometimes I question if he knows how to play hockey, period, but that's just a joke. He's obviously going to be pretty important for the Knights, moving forward, being able to put it in the back of the net. But, yeah, like I said, this is my final answer is don't start him, don't finish with him, but play him in the middle. Maybe play him 10, 15 minutes on ice. No pressure there. Plus, you might get a little bit of spark out of it. Maybe you will shoot a goal in, and then you'll probably win the series, and then you can, have him going forward starting.
Now, Spencer, I'm throwing you under a bus under 2 things you talked about earlier in the season real quick. 2 players on the Golden Knights that you said were expendable and they could lose. Both those guys have been unbelievably important. One of them, both of them in the regular season, one of them has been vital in the postseason and has stepped up his game big time. The guy in the regular season, obviously Max Pacioretty hurt, but leading the team in goals, and there is no question we saw the effect of in this game when Mark Stone was not being initially productive in the point total because him and Max have become so good together. Know where each other is going to be, and I really think Max Pacioretty helps Mark Stone. Now, would Mark Stone still be a great player without Max? Of course, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying on this team they have vibed well. The other one that I'm going to talk about is Jonathan Marchessault. Player He always seems to be in the right place at the right time. And the bottom line is the one thing about Jonathan Marchessault, what I've always liked about him, is he is Charlie Hustle on the ice. The guy always plays at full speed and plays his best. Is he the most talented player in the National Hockey League? Of course not. But he is a very talented player for his size. He plays bigger than his size. And the one thing I love about Jonathan Marchessault is he does not shy away from physical play. The more physical the game gets, Jonathan Marchessault tends to be there. Where on the other hand, I've seen Riley Smith improve in that area, but Riley Smith is a guy who is not a very physical player. Jonathan Marchessault plays bigger than his stature. So all I'm going to say is both these guys have been and will continue to be vital for this particular. Again, I don't think you would see Jonathan Marchessault maybe make an NHL all-star team, but Jonathan Marchessault is good enough to be a 1 or 2 line player on most teams in the National Hockey League. He would see the ice and he would be a contributor no matter where he went. Max Pacioretty, now into his 30s, is a former all-star and has the ability to still be one. And again, the Vegas Golden Knights, they tied for the most points this year in the National Hockey League as far as points go for wins and losses. They are tied for the best record in the National Hockey League. We're a whisker away from winning the President's Cup, and their leading goal scorer is Max Pacioretty. It's hard to dispute any of those things since they are all facts. But instead of letting you go on about this, I'm just saying I just wanted to point those things out to you. I understood your arguments earlier in the season. Max Pacioretty takes too many shots. Matter of fact, he probably takes as many shots as anyone in the league, and not all of them quality shots. He needs to take more quality shots. Jonathan Marchessault at times has disappeared, has taken an errant penalty that maybe he shouldn't do. But he's an aggressive player, and aggressiveness does cause those things to happen sometimes. I don't want to spend more time on that. One of the things I wanted to talk about, Spencer, as we wrap this segment up, is how valuable video replay has been to the Vegas Golden Knights this year. You mentioned it yourself. Eriksson Ek could have 2 extra goals, and potentially, if Minnesota was up 3, was clearly offside, but unless you have video replay, it's not called. And boy, does Pete DeBoer take a risk in that game, because if it doesn't go their way, they're up 3-0 and they're on the power play. So that is monstrous, because that's the penalty of missing or getting a call wrong. You immediately go shorthanded, and then to get the goal taken away, goaltender interference, so close, but you could see the skates of the Minnesota player were clearly in the blue area, which is considered the goal crease, which was goalie interference. Both of those, though, very close calls. Pete DeBoer wins both of them. Their goals off the board, and as you said, in game number 3, Spencer, if they don't get that goal removed, they probably lose. It could have been different also, is that would have made it a 2-1 hockey game, and it could have potentially sparked a comeback for the Minnesota Wild. Wow, what ballsy video replay requests by the Golden Knights, number 1, and number 2, both successful difference makers, and potentially, if they won the Stanley Cup, those are 2 goals you have to look back on that could say that helped them win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, this is the reality with hockey too, and this drives me nuts in all other sports. I think replay is really something that you objectively look at. In football, there are so many nuanced things about turnovers and all of that. It's hard to tell. It's hard to look at the puck. In hockey, it's offsides, which is pretty easy, like the way the angle looks at, and whether or not the puck is in the net, and goaltender interference. That's the one that's a little shaky.
But if he's in the blue area,
sure, yeah.
In the crease.
They've clearly defined the way that they do their rules, and that's obviously benefited. I think that's just good for hockey. Also, they don't take forever to look at replays too. That's what you have to admire. No, I agree. I mean, it is. I mean, luck is part of the.
Vegas Golden Knights during the inaugural season and part of the team during their run to the Stanley Cup Finals in the first season, in the 2017-2018 season. And to see Montreal faring well against a good Toronto Maple Leafs team. Toronto did even the series yesterday, but Montreal was able to steal game one in Toronto. And how cool is it? You see Daniel Tatar, Nick Suzuki, and John Merrill now, another guy that we dished off to the Red Wings, who Montreal picked up before the trading deadline. 3 of those guys, and all 3 of them contributing to this Montreal team that still could end up surprising the Toronto Maple Leafs and coming out of the 4-hole in the Northern Division and winning that, and that would be kind of cool. And then, other teams, you see Pierre-Edouard Bellemare playing for the Colorado Avalanche, doing real good there. And how about, David Perron playing for the St. Louis Blues? I love seeing Golden Knights players and other teams. A side story, but it's kind of cool. But the real question now, Spencer, will the Knights win Game 5? As much as I love St. Louis Game 4 and extend the series in the Colorado, I think that series ends today. St. Louis just has no comment. They just have no answer for Colorado. Colorado is too fast. They're getting way too good of goaltending right now, and the St. Louis Blues are going to have to play their best game just to win one game. So it is important, but do the Knights win this in Game 5, or does it take longer?
It's tough because the idea is that they're desperate, and desperation in the playoffs is worth a whole lot in any sport. Doesn't matter. The problem is for them is quickly. Be great by the time I say the Stanley Cup, as if assuming they're going to be there, but you would hope by the time the Stanley Cup rolls around that they'd be full capacity. That would be really, really special. I'm going to say the Golden Knights close this thing out. Look, it might not be pretty. It might be like a 2-1 or maybe a 4-2 or 4-3. They may be a little motivated than the Knights. So I'm series.
Wow, that is a 4-3 to clinch the series. So they're going to lose 2 straight games to Minnesota.
No, the Golden Knights clinched the game.
Oh, they clinched. 4-3. They clinch. Okay, I thought the series would go 4-3. No, I definitely agree with you. I think that they win no matter who goes in net tomorrow. I think that they win and they advance. And Colorado Golden Knights, it's going to be a heck of a series, people. I am looking so. That should be a great series. It's really unfortunate it's happening in the second round because they are record-wise really. And you know what? You got to get by Colorado eventually, so why not in the second round? They have had trouble with them all year, but they had trouble with Minnesota all year. They couldn't win in Minnesota. XL Center's been a nightmare for them, and yet they've won. They won 2 straight games there. So hard to say that, but the series that I think is been one of the most based on what's happened, but it's been the all Florida series. Everyone looked forward to that. The Florida Panthers winning and Tampa Bay, Florida getting, having to win their last 2 games to get first seed. Tampa Bay coming in as 4th seed because they've been without Kucherov the entire season. He's been out getting hip surgery. And of course, they were also missing Steven Stamkos for the last month and a half of the season. Both those guys come back right before the playoffs. And lo and behold, the Tampa Bay Lightning are now on the threshold of winning the first series, coming out of the 4-hole. To me, they are one of the most dangerous teams in champions, number 1. We can't take that away from them, right? And now having Kucherov, although Kucherov got hurt yesterday, I don't know how bad that was as he took a slash in that game across his knee. It didn't look like it was that hard, but it's the one area that's not protected, so that's a little bit worrisome. But having Stamkos and Kucherov back, Spencer, is invaluable to them, and Vasilevsky is playing as good as he did last year. This Tampa Bay Lightning team is a team that, to me, is one of the most scary in the National Hockey League right now, and everyone better take note. If Kucherov is okay and is able to come back and skate with them and continue the way he's been playing, and Stamkos and Vasilevsky keep staying on his head, the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to make a run this year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and yet here's Tampa Bay healthy at the right time and probably the scariest team, in my opinion, in the postseason right now.
Well, health is just health and playoff experience. When you have those 2 things, potential doesn't really mean anything in the playoffs. Just Miami, you have all this playoff experience. It didn't mean anything last year. So again, I agree with you. Tampa Bay is so dangerous, and people just kind of swept them under a rug like they wouldn't do anything. How can you discount a team that was recently just so successful? It's nuts. That's one of the great parts about hockey. I think there's a lot more even matchups. I think talent is more evenly spread amongst the league, at least for playoff teams.
Every one of the teams is doing good. If you'll notice, there's one common denominator, and it's the man between the pipes. Every teams. Obviously, we talk enough about Vegas Golden Knights, but even the Colorado Avalanche with Grubauer back now team, he is such a tough guy to get the puck past. But it is goaltending, and it is defense that wins championships. Spencer, let's move on. It's time for Fact This, and I've been looking forward to this one since yesterday.
Fact This. If you don't like the facts, take your ass back to bed. Fact This.
Fact. The oldest player to ever win a major on the PGA Tour was a guy named Julius Boros, who in 1968 won the PGA Championship at the age of 40. This could be the day that a way more familiar name breaks that record. Phil Mickelson, who turns 51 in June, takes a one-stroke lead into today's final round at the 2021 PGA Championship. Considering Phil is currently ranked 115th in the world, Spencer, and has 2 top 20 finishes in the last 2 years, this would be pretty amazing. Thursday, he was 201 to win the PGA Championship. Wow. Today, he's 3-1.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with golf. It's like this mystical sport where it's like the bug catches you or something. But we know, like, when you play consistently great, I mean, it's just all the stars have to align, and sometimes they do. Greatness in golf shines every once in a while. And think about it this way, too. I mean, think about how dedicated you have to be. I know you don't have to be the most athletic person to play golf, but you have to keep yourself in golf shape on some level, meaning that you're swinging constantly, right? Like you're constantly honing in your game. And you're dedicate yourself to a game on another level that people who are 20 to 30 just, they don't have to try as hard. You have to put so much effort into your game to be there because there's just so many facets. I think it's the hardest sport in the world, personally. It's so frustrating, and to enjoy the game still at this age on a competitive level. You'll always enjoy golf, I'm sure, casually, and we all do from time to time. This is a whole other universe.
No, it really is. It's the coolest. I don't watch golf all the time. I wish I played better than I do. I'm a lousy golfer, but I enjoy the hell out of the game. It's some of the coolest landscape you'll ever see. I love playing the game of golf. I love watching the majors. It started in about 1986, believe it or not, well before you were a thought, when Jack Nicklaus at 46 won the Masters. I watched that back 9 at Augusta. One of the most incredible things ever. I've been hooked ever since, and I watch all 4 majors. So obviously I'm locked in right now. It is pretty amazing because the last guy that was 200 to 1 to win a major, okay, the last guy to win 200 to 1 to win a major. Yeah, pretty crazy. He won the 2010 British Open. He was 200 before the tournament started. And ironically, Louis Oosthuizen has finished runner-up in all 4 majors. He's won a U.S. Open, but this is pretty cool. He's 38, so a couple of elder statesmen to a degree, vying. Louis Oosthuizen a couple strokes back at 5 under. But as much as I want to say this is the year for Phil Mickelson, who has not finished in a top 10 in a major since 2016, Spencer. Again, 2 top 20 finishes in the last 2 years. Okay. There's 8 players within 5 shots of Mickelson going into today. But the guy on his tail, Brooks Koepka,
it's like
one of the
monster.
top 5 players in the game. He is a flipping machine. He doesn't get rattled. Phil likes to talk. Koepka probably won't say a word to him today in that final pairing, but Brooks Koepka is as good as it gets. One of only 3 guys that was driving the ball 340 plus yesterday. I mean, he is a beast. Not the greatest guy to have chasing you and only 1 stroke back behind Phil. He's actually the odds-on favorite. He's plus 160. Actually, not really the odds on favorite. Plus 160 to win today, which I think is pretty good odds on Koepka. Phil at 3-1 would be the odds on favorite. Louis is 6-1. Then you go back to a guy, Kevin Streelem, the guy that nobody knows that's in fourth place right now. He's 4 under. He's 16-1. And odds that I really like on a guy is Bryson DeChambeau. Sure. Probably took his shot of steroids this morning. He's -2, tied for 7th. He's 18-1 going in. And that's 5 strokes back of Phil. And I think 5 strokes back or not, you're catchable. And but what a great final round they are set up for right now, Spencer. Yeah. Over there in South Carolina, they're playing on the ocean courts. Kauai, it's unbelievable. And the question is, can Phil hang on at 50 years old? He turns 51 next month. Can he hold on, become the oldest major ever winner today, and somehow hold off Brooks Koepka?
Yeah, see, the thing you talked about, and I agree with you that Brooks Koepka won't, crumble to the pressure, but Phil also won't. I mean, you want to talk about experience. This guy has the most in the PGA right now. I think he'll be there. I think he enjoys his game, and I think he's also in the zone right now. I mean, that's all that matters, right? You have the young beast in Brooks Koepka, but he probably wants this more than Koepka does, and that can take you a long way too. But also the interesting part of golf too is if you want it too much, you'll probably end up falling apart too. But I think you'll probably have the wherewithal to keep an even head, just play one hole at a time, take your chances when you need to. You kind of have to go for it, right? If you're Phil Mickelson, because you can't just play hard. Actually, I think he'll hold on. I think he wants this really badly, and I think the momentum will carry him, to the finish line.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he shoots par, that would mean Koepka would have to go 1 under to tie him. That would mean Oosthuizen would have to go 2 under to tie him, and Streelem would have to go 3 under to tie him. Those are all formative under par at the PGA on Sunday. They're going to make it tough. It's a major. I don't know. I said from the very beginning, I like Koepka a lot in this tournament. I like him again. I think it's going to end up being Koepka winning the PGA, but I would love to see Phil do it. Man, do I want to be wrong desperately. I don't want it to be runner-up. A couple other guys that are in the mix that have big names when you go down the board. Gary Woodland is 2 under. We already talked about Bryson DeChambeau. Paul Casey, who I call the fader, always somehow is in contention and never ends up closing in the major. He's one under, so he's only 6 back, still within contention. And a guy that I'm really, really happy for, Spencer, to close out this conversation, Ricky Fowler. Didn't even make the cut at the Masters, didn't qualify for the Masters. First time he's missed a major in a long time. He qualified for the PGA. I'm happy to see him back doing well. He really has lost his confidence. He's even par, only 7 strokes behind Phil going into today's round. I'd love to see Ricky end up in red figures. It's nice to see him back and playing well again. He's one of the guys that I'd love to see him win a major before his career's up, but one of the more colorful guys on tour. And to think when I saw him not playing the Masters, that was shocking. So it's good to see Ricky Fowler back. He's tied for 13th again at even par. But what a final day we should have today, man. I am locked down. I am going home, playing some online poker, and I'm watching the PGA final, and I'm pulling for Phil big time. But if I was going to put my money down, I like plus 160 in Brooks Koepka, man. That is going to be a tough out and a tough beat. This guy just plays really well. Like I said, Phil likes to talk on Sundays, and we know Brooks doesn't. It'll be interesting to see if those two guys are communicating on the golf course at all. I mean, I know Brooks looks up to Phil. Who doesn't? So it'll be interesting to see how that final pairing plays out. I can't wait to watch it. That is made for some great television. All right, Spence, let's roll it over to the NBA playoffs, something I know you are all wrapped up in, very involved in. And, we can start over in the West. A series that I want to talk about that I really like is the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers. I told you last week, Dallas is one of my favorite teams to watch. Luka Doncic, I mean, the guy is 22 years old, Spencer.
I know.
22 years old. He just had his second 30-point triple-double, 30-point plus a triple-double, the most by any player age 22 or younger in the history. I know LeBron did it, and I know at the age of 22, but Luka's done it twice.
Listen, it's ridiculous what he's doing, because go down the Dallas Mavericks roster for a second. I mean, their second best player is technically Porzingis, but yet, and I like their backup point guard, but I mean, it's just not a very talented roster, but he makes them great. So the other side of this, though, is the Clippers, right? They lose game one. This is the problem with the Clippers. When you had the Miami Heat days where LeBron was there, they made themselves the villains of the league, and they drove off of that. They may not have actually been villains. I don't think they were. I don't think they kind of carried themselves that way, but that was the story around them, and they ran with it. The Clippers have nothing like that. They have a super team, and all they have is pressure from everybody. They can do. That's not besides the fact that or played a lot of games together this year. Serge Ibaka was out for most of the season. Kawhi, misses a bunch of games. Paul George missed a bunch. Pat Beverly missed a bunch of games. These guys don't even know what it's like to be on the court with each other. And they're not as talented as the Brooklyn Nets, especially in the advantage for the Brooklyn Nets who haven't played a lot of games together. They're all great scorers individually. This is a team effort for the Clippers, and clearly, so far, it hasn't worked for them. And this long series, I don't think this is indicative of the whole series.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard double-double, had 26 points, was 9 of 22 from the field, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. But again, Luka, man, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. I mean, he just does it all, brings it up to 4, and it's so much fun to watch. I don't know that Dallas will get by the Clippers in this series. As you said, it's a 7-game series. And when you're talking about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, 2 of the best in the NBA, especially postseason, it's going to be a tough out. But it's amazing to see what Luka Doncic, I won't say the Dallas Mavericks, I'm with you, what Luka Doncic might do by himself in the postseason is pretty damn cool. And on the other side, another big upset, if you want to call it that, the Portland Trailblazers blow out the Denver Nuggets yesterday. I keep saying that I don't want to say Damian Lillard is the most underrated player in the NBA, because I think everyone knows about Dame. He's just not talked about enough, Spencer, and he is such a special and talented player in the NBA. How far, and you know more than I do, you follow the NBA more than I, how far can Damian Lillard take this Portland Trailblazers team this year?
Yeah, well, that's the question, right? And they were the 3rd worst defense statistically in NBA history this year, and they actually played a decent game. The key thing, I think, for the Nuggets, or not the Nuggets, the Trailblazers, is they're not going to shut out the best player on the opposing team. They literally are one of the worst defenses ever. But if they can take an aspect away, because they're going to be able to score with anybody. They have so many offensive weapons. Norman Powell, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Nurkic is a pretty good scorer. Carmelo Anthony's playing very well right now. Anthony Simons is actually playing pretty decent. I think he shot well yesterday. So scoring's never going to be an issue for them. But if you look at the key stat from yesterday's game against the Nuggets, is Jokic had a great game, but he had 1 assist. They depend on Jokic to run that offense, especially now that Jamal Murray's gone. So if they took that away from him, just that one part, and they'll have to do that in every series. I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe if they play the Clippers, you try to stop Kawhi from scoring as much, or you don't let Reggie Jackson be a facilitator. You don't let Paul George get into his comfortable spots, because they're not going to be able to do multiple things, just that. And hopefully, they want to score 123 every game, but if they can realistically score 110 a night, they can pretty much beat anybody. I think it's going to come kill them, though. I think once they play the better teams, the later you get, there's going to be more than just Jokic on a team, because there's no second star for the Nuggets, and that's, obviously Michael Porter Jr. Also, in this series specifically, everything is riding on the Trailblazers. The Nuggets have no pressure on themselves. They went past where everyone thought they would last year. Now they're without Jamal Murray. I think that kind of stress that the Trailblazers are putting on themselves will elevate them very far in the series. I definitely like the Trailblazers here, but Damian Lillard, by the way, amazing. He was my pick to win MVP before the season started.
It was his 18th 30-point plus playoff game. He scored 34 yesterday on his way to a double-double. He had 13 assists as well. I think with Portland, as you mentioned, and McCollum, CJ McCollum, again, a big game, also 21 points yesterday. That is a tremendous backcourt, if not the best backcourt in the NBA. it's one of the best backcourts in the NBA. I mean, McCollum and Lillard out, but a lot of it's going to depend on, as you mentioned, the third leading scorer off the bench, Carmelo Anthony, at 106 years old, still playing tremendous basketball, really has been a great contributor and a perfect fit to this team. But I really think it's going to be Nurkic who is going to make the difference for the Trailblazers. He's got big, wide body, Spencer. He's a good center. Double-double yesterday, 16 points, but more importantly, 12 rebounds. Him controlling the glass and the inside presence for Portland is how far is this team going to do. Lillard will do his thing from the outside. He'll do his thing from the inside. He'll do his thing dishing the basketball. But you've got to have some consistent play from a big for this team to have any chance to win. As good as those guards are, it is going to be Yusuf Nurkic that is going to be the difference for the Trailblazers. And I said that all along. They've got to have tremendous play from him. Last night they did, more than serviceable. 12 boards, 16 points. They keep getting production like that out of him. That's going to make McCollum and obviously Lillard's job a lot easier in the perimeter. And I like this Portland team. I do think they are going to beat the Denver Nuggets, but I don't think they're going to go any farther. But I love what Damian Lillard's doing. And you're right. People got to start talking about him as one of the most valuable players in the National Basketball Association, one of the best little men to ever play this game. Damian Lillard is a special and very gifted talent. And maybe because they hide him up in Portland, he's not talked about enough. He should be. He's as good as anybody in the National Basketball Association doing what he does, and that is being a team leader. He's good at both ends of the floor. He'll play defense for you. He'll hustle down the court, and we all know that his range, in my opinion, is every bit as good as Steph Curry's. That's how good I think Damian Lillard is. So it's going to be an interesting series there, Spencer. Another one in the West, that everyone's waiting for and anticipating. Obviously, the LA Lakers. How far will they go now that you have your two bigs back again? When I talk about your two bigs, the two-headed monster of Anthony Davis and LeBron James back. Neither one of them at 100%, but with those two guys on the floor, we saw what they could do last year in the bubble. How good are they going to be, and can they repeat?
Yeah, this is the thing, right? They're like the second favorites to, I think, win the title. And yet they're only slight favorites to win in this series. The money initially was like the line was crazy. Like the Lakers, I think, were minus 300 in the series, and then it's come way back, and now it's going back towards the Lakers. But it's hard to understand the betting market when it comes to the Lakers because there's so many fans of the franchise that they're just going to bet on them anyways. But I mean, health is obviously the biggest concern here. But I actually think about it this way: if the Lakers so you're not going to play. You never had a chance to play the 8th seed, which is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. After that, I guess maybe the Dallas Mavericks, because they're not so talented. Although that's probably not a fun series that they would want to partake in. You don't want to play the Clippers. You definitely don't want to play the Utah Jazz at any point, or not at any point. I think they could beat Utah or Phoenix, but Utah is just way tougher. I think it's just something they wouldn't want to. They're hoping they get knocked out at some point. You don't want to face Rudy Gobert, especially because they play so down low. They're so big. There's no advantage there. And then look at the Phoenix Suns. I mean, yes, they have Chris Paul, but in the reality situation, Chris Paul's never even been to a finals. And then Devin Booker has never won more than 20 games until last season. Mikal Bridges is very young. DeAndre Ayton obviously is like only in his second or third season. So as you go down the list and you really start to think about it, this is an inexperienced Phoenix team. They were great in the regular season. They were great against the spread. Everything seems to trend towards that. But as we know, the regular season, the playoff, they're like two totally different games. So as long as – and who's going to guard Anthony Davis in this series? I mean, DeAndre Ayton, it's just not a responsibility you want him to take on, especially if the Lakers are smart enough to play Anthony Davis at the 5, which I know he doesn't like to, but in the playoffs last year, come on, they were dominant when he was at the 5. So hopefully they go back to that. I think they will. I think they'll be ready, barring any setbacks injury-wise, but the one last thing for the Lakers is they're going to need Dennis Schroeder to play way better than he did against the Warriors. He was garbage. I know he's just coming back from health and safety protocols. He didn't have COVID-19, but he did have to sit out for like a week or two, and he only played at the end of the season. I think he'll get there, but they're not winning the series without Dennis Schroeder, scoring at least 15 a game, in my opinion.
It's going to be a very interesting series, and I agree with you. I think it's a perfect storm for LA. I think Phoenix was the team they don't want to play. DeAndre Ayton gets better and better every year, Spencer. Sure. He's still a young guy with development in front of him. He's not ready to guard Anthony Davis in a 7-game series. If Anthony Davis is playing his game, I agree with you 100%. Switching over real quickly to the Great game yesterday between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. Everyone was wondering, is Miami going to step up like they did last year, the surprise team in the bubble last year? Jimmy Butler willing his team to the NBA Finals. I don't think Miami's going to do the same thing this year. Jimmy Butler struggling from the field, 4 for 22 yesterday, but one of those 4 happened to be the final bucket of regulation that put the game into overtime. When the game is hanging in the balance, you want the ball in Jimmy Butler's hand. If you're Miami, they had it in his hand, they tied, but Milwaukee overall too much. You're wondering, is this the year Milwaukee's finally get over to the hump? And it wasn't Giannis who takes the final shot. It's Chris Middleton who had a hell of a game, 27 points, including the game winner with half a second left. If he's playing as well as he did yesterday, and of course Giannis, 18 rebounds to go along with his 26 points, Milwaukee will be a tough out.
They need to depend on Chris Middleton a lot more than they have been. That's been the problem with them. So to this point, Giannis shot way too much yesterday. Look, Giannis suffers from the same thing that Westbrook does when the playoff starts, and that the regular season is obviously very fast, and there's fast breaks. There is no one better in the fast break than Giannis. Maybe in NBA history, with his size and athleticism, there's a lot more half court, and Giannis just doesn't excel in that side. But you know who does? Chris Middleton. He's one of the best ISO scorers in the league, and obviously he had that game winner. They're dangerous. They just need to realize that scoring isn't the ultimatum. And I think Giannis tries to put too much responsibility on himself. You got some great scorers in Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. Lean on them and pick your spots. That's what they should be doing.
No, I'll agree with you 100%. And I wanted to, before we move on to the last team, I want to give you some props. Now, which was a very tough out, and we watched Ja Morant continuing to grow and grow and grow in his second season now. In no time at all, we are going to be talking about him being one of the best players in the National Basketball players in the NBA. He does both ends of the court. He plays well above the rim. He is one of the most exciting and dynamic players to play in the NBA. With that being said, Memphis is done, but at least they got into
Mitchell in game one.
At least they got to the playoffs, to the real playoffs. And I'm very excited for them, as they are definitely on an upward swing. And Memphis Grizzlies are going to be a team to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference for years to come, as long as they hang on to Ja Morant, because he is that good and that special of a player. But let's go ahead, Spencer, and talk about the one team that everyone says, if there is a team that would be a juggernaut, which I don't think there is because they haven't played enough together this year, it would be the Brooklyn Nets. Hard to argue that any team is more talented than the Nets when you talk about their three-headed monster in Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. They are as good as it gets. All three of them in double figures. No surprising. Durant, 32 points, 12 rebounds. Kyrie Irving, 29 points, 6 rebounds, and an assist. And, of course, James Harden, almost a triple-double. Didn't even have a double-double, but he was real close. 21 points, 8 assists, 9 rebounds. James was playing at both ends of the court. That is going to be a tough team to beat. 104-93 over the Celtics. As much as I love the ability of Jason Tatum, he has no chance against this Brooklyn team. Does anybody in the East have a chance against this Brooklyn team if those three guys play well and all play together?
This is the tough part about playing the Brooklyn Nets is, okay, you want to play fast. Let's play in the fast break. Well, you're definitely not going to win a game against the Nets. And then you just go to the half court, and now you're staring down 3 of the best half court players in the entire league. It's really tough to stop them. Someone's going to have to just knock them out defensively enough and score enough.
Conference finals, and that'll be hell of finals. But I agree with you. 79% of the Nets points came from Durant, Harding, and Irving yesterday. You don't see that very often, but that's how good those three are and how good the Brooklyn Nets can be. Listen, we're just about out of time. I did want to mention the Las Vegas Aces, who are playing again today at home against the Connecticut Sun. After that first loss to Seattle, you wondered how good they are going to be. They came back and beat Seattle in Game 2. beat the LA Sparks handily Friday night in their home opener. I think they'll win again today, and they'll be on a 3-game winning streak. Good to them, and we got to get out there and see some of those games. Also, the Aviators playing up at the Las Vegas ballpark. Listen, we're out of time. I'm Brian Feldman along with Spencer Ostrowski. This has been Out of Line. We want to thank again Damon Cotton back in the Fox Courts Residential Bank Court Studios. And we'll be back next week. We'll have some great guests on the show next week. We are here every Sunday, same time, 8 to 9, Out of Line, Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM, 1340 AM. And I will say it because I can cheer from here. Go Knights, go, man. Win Game 5 and beat the damn Avalanche. We'll see you next week.